Well, would you look at that? Look at me here on the left side once again. And Mr. Dan Brown joins me once again, this time to talk about WWE, right here on Firmly WWE. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Drew. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Sorry for all your listeners out there who have to hear my voice crack every 20 seconds, just coming over the cold, but happy to be here. Happy to be talking WWE.
Yes, I'm very happy to have you because I know we were last on screen together for Firmly AEW on Thursday. But I know that WWE is kind of your bread and butter, and I'm very, very much looking forward to hear what your
more
opinions
my wheelhouse.
Are. I'm very much looking forward to what your opinions are on everything here for WWE's side of things. I think what we have had since the Royal Rumble is an interesting shift in my feelings on both shows, because I don't know about you, Dan. 3 hours for SmackDown just doesn't do it for me.
That doesn't work for you, brother.
It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's a Friday night, and I just would really rather be doing something else at 10 p.m. than watching another hour of SmackDown. But I did enjoy this past SmackDown, though. There was one particular thing we're going to get into later about it, because there was so much, and we don't have 5 hours to fill for the day. So, first of all, Dan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. What about you?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling good.
Maybe I could be your Conrad Thompson. What say you, Drew? You're listening to Firmly WWE.
I'm seeing red right now.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm seeing red right now is because I don't know if you are like I am, but I'm a day one Uce. I am firmly behind. See what I did there? I'm firmly behind Jey Uso and his plight to the main event, hopefully, of WrestleMania to win the World Heavyweight Championship from Gunther. Sandy actually even said in the chat, "Oh, see, I am seeing red. This is correct. These glasses hurt my eyes sometimes. But what I do for you people, And actually, before we get into this, Sandy has a very important question for you.
Okay, let's go. I can't see the comments.
Do you watch NXT?
I recently got rid of cable, so I don't have even access to the local channels on CW. But I do try to keep up with NXT. I was watching it off and on there for quite a bit. What's going on? What do you want to talk about NXT?
I don't want to talk about NXT.
I just realized that this isn't like a call-in, Sandy. Sandy, are you there? Sandy, turn on your radio.
Sandy is a very loyal viewer of ours, whom I love very much, and he's very much into NXT and has tried relentlessly to no avail, unfortunately, for there to be a firmly NXT show with me and JPJ, because JPJ, as everybody knows, does his own watch-alongs
Yeah.
on his Twitch channel for Raw and NXT and SmackDown, and it's just not something that I can muster up the courage to watch every week. I enjoyed NXT when it was black and gold,
Yeah.
many moons
Well,
ago at this point, but it's just not something that I can do for 2 hours.
So I'm going to
But
call NXT the Terry Taylor effect. And you're familiar with Terry Taylor and the Red Rooster.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So essentially he got the Red Rooster gimmick. And depending who you want to talk to, Bruce Pritchard says that he didn't commit to it fully, so that's why it failed. Other people just admit that it's a crappy gimmick. So however you want to look at it, it's one of those things where even after Terry Taylor left the WWF, like he would go on a show and people would still be doing the rooster calls at him kind of thing. I still think we're at that point with NXT right now where through years of it being so good, but the second they get called up, almost all the talent gets immediately buried. We're also still living through the NXT 2.0 effect.
Yes.
Right now.
Yes, we are.
And even though NXT is certainly on the rise, you got a lot of goodwill you have a lot of faith you need to rebuild with the NXT fan base and with wrestling fans quite in general. Because remember when NXT started, it truly was like the minor league baseball brand where it was like, hey, we're going to send the Usos down there to have a tag match with whoever at the end of the night so we can try to get people into the building. Or we're going to send, Cesaro down there for, to have a match with somebody, just try to get the, people in the door. And then once they started getting people in the door, they didn't need to do that quite as much. I think we're still looking at people looking at it like it is indeed the minor league baseball team. It's AAA, but how many guys in AAA are hitting 300 and then, they get called up to the bigs and they're hitting 215 and they're sent right back down and we never hear from them again. So
right. It
sucks, but it is what it is.
The 2.0 era really did kind of sour NXT for a lot of people to the point that they still, as of today, even though it is, and I do admit, and a lot of people do admit, it is better than it was when Vince and I think Bruce Pritchard at the time were overseeing things. It's just got that label on it still.
It does. Well, I mean, you can't just hit the reset flip. Like you remember the reset flip. Like you remember when Russo did that in WCW and he vacated everyone's belt. And I
actually wouldn't. I'm not somebody that you could talk to about WCW.
So I mean, I'm just going back with my brief memory. But yeah, he vacated literally all the belts on an episode of Nitro. So the show started, everyone's in the ring, everyone has to give their belt up. Dusty wants to say hello. When you do that, you're insulting literally everyone's intelligence, their fandom, and their faith in you as well. It's like, hey, everything that you watched up until right now doesn't matter. That's why it still took a long time for Raw and SmackDown to become watchable after Triple H took over. And then when Vince McMahon forced his way back in, it took a while for it to become watchable again, because as soon as he started making progress with it, it instantly went right back down for, 6 to 8 months, whatever it was. But still, it's if that's going to happen to Raw and SmackDown, then the third, fourth, fifth brands are all going to suffer even longer. It's just what it is.
Right.
And then I'm also going to say how I don't think something on Raw actually helped that case too, but we'll get there.
Okay. So there's one particular segment I'm really excited to hear your opinions on.
Good.
We're going to get to that later. So Gunther has taken it upon himself to feel how Jey Uso feels
That was
and
fantastic.
and
I
and
loved it.
walk through Jey Uso's people and feel that moment. And actually, Pluggo just asked a question. What is that jersey, Dan? I don't know.
This men or youth hockey, where my son plays.
Oh, very nice. I like
Yeah.
that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning to Scott. Everybody
good morning,
who's here so
Pluggo.
far. Scott, Pluggo, Sandy. Good to see you all. So Gunther walks through the crowd, and this was I did really enjoy this too. This was cringe. Sandy says cringe when Gunther was eating. And what I
But
really
it
particularly
was a
liked,
good cringe, though.
Right, it was a good cringe, yes. What I particularly
Yes.
liked about it was that the crowd, most of the crowd at least, didn't eat with him. They booed him
Exactly. Yeah.
because you don't dare take the eat. That's Jey Uso's thing, damn it.
Well, it reminded me like when Daniel Bryan, and I'm using Daniel Bryan in these terms because we're talking about WWE television, when he was doing the yes movement and they were going up to WrestleMania, and then Stephanie McMahon would mock him and do yes, and the people would do no to her.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
it was
exactly what needs to happen.
It's awesome. Yes.
Yeah, it is awesome. I agree. So he calls yeeting a simple gesture for simple people like Jey Uso. It's just like, how dare you, you son of a bitch.
What a great line.
So he wanted Jey to pick in his what he considers Jey's better interest, which would be Cody, and not him, because he outclasses Jey Uso in every aspect of the sport. I really, I love when he calls wrestling a sport, because it truly, like, you can feel that he means that this is a sport. You know, like the way that he grew up in this business.
It's still real to him, damn it.
It's
and I of course I'm stealing that line, and I steal that line quite a bit. But I love the guy who said that, because every wrestling fan who watches that video should feel that way at some point, where it's still real to me.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. At one point he's walking down the stairs and there's this kid in his way. And he's just like, kid, get out of here before something bad happens.
The only way that could have been better is if that kid was holding a yeet sign and he just ripped it, like, as he went by, or just like took it and threw it.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
But I mean, you did the best with what you could.
So he gets to the ring. He's asking the crowd if they think that Jey has a chance against him. And of course, everyone's yeeting at this. And what I've been liking about the new era of WWE is that they're kind of addressing the commentators more in promos, and not just making them be these side characters that you only hear the voices of and never actually see.
Yeah.
Gunther goes up to Pat McAfee, calls them, says that both Pat and Cole are supposed to be unbiased journalists.
Yep.
And Gunther throws the microphone at Pat to like, so do you think Jey Uso is going to beat me? Do you think he has a chance? And everyone, so this is just like similar to what you were just saying. It was like how the yes chant would be, Daniel Bryan would ask a question where that the answer is yes, and then the crowd would do this. So everyone is waiting in anticipation for yeet to happen, because that's the answer, of course. Yep. Everyone thinks that he'll beat Gunther. So Pat kind of like gives a half answer. It's an answer, but it's not the answer I think that the crowd was expecting. Everyone was just expecting him to go yeet, but he didn't do that. He just like gave like an actual answer to the question in such a Pat McAfee way, of course. And then, of course, finally Jey Uso comes out, but he doesn't come through the crowd. This time he actually comes from the stage, and then the security are trying to hold him back. But of course, he, in typical wrestling fashion, gets by security, and they start brawling in the ring. They get pulled apart. The ring general runs up the ramp. But interestingly, the ring general said, "Oh, I'm getting in your head," to Jey. But it's him that actually scurried away when Jey Uso came to answer the challenge. So I found that interesting. And then, of course, Jey just does his yeeting, and we all yeet with him because that's what we do. We're all yeeters.
I was yeeting at home.
Yep, right there in your basement.
Yep.
I was yeeting right here in the privacy of my desk in my bedroom. I got some pain. She's like, "Oh, I've been eating a lot. I gotta calm down. I gotta calm down." So later on in the night, Jey, and I gotta find it because firstly, it's hard to see with these glasses on. But okay, here it is. So later on in the night, Jey gets interviewed backstage, and he says people are doubting that he can beat Gunther, but he won the Royal Rumble, and at WrestleMania, he's going to shock the world again. And the reason why I needed this as our highlighted topic of the day is because the interesting thing that I'm finding about this storyline is Gunther is playing the role of that internet keyboard mark, so to speak,
right.
of like, the one who obsesses over hashtag ring work and hashtag not big enough for the main event of WrestleMania. That's been happening lately since Jey won the Rumble. And it's the direction of the story regarding if Jey is really ready to be in this spot, which they've told with other feuds of his in the past, but this is like, now this is the big one. This is the one that wrestlers all aspire for. Like, you've won the Royal Rumble, you've got the main event of WrestleMania, which we hope is the actual main event of WrestleMania, but we'll see.
You just saw my dog puke on television.
Oh no.
Yeah, hold on. I'll be right back. Let me I'm gonna stop my cam for 1 second so you guys don't have to see anymore. One moment.
Okay, go ahead. So what they've been essentially telling with this story is that Jey isn't worthy of a main event. Sandy, I will take off the glasses in a moment. I need to feel the Jey Uso powers first, and then I can continue. But boy, I did not expect. I wasn't paying attention to the screen, so thankfully I didn't see the act of what just happened.
All right, sorry about that. My dog's actually the best puker you could possibly have because
I know
she always like she just puked on a weight of mine.
That reminds me of a cat that I had a few years ago.
It was so easy to. It's so easy to clean this off and whatnot. She never makes a mess. So anyway, as you were saying,
yeah,
I'm just disinfecting it right now too.
That's okay. That's what happens. Scott said Dan's dog is sick of Gunther too.
I was gonna say my dog's one of those internet trolls that's upset with Jey Uso being in the main event of WrestleMania.
Right, I know.
She can tired of me eating.
So my message to those people on the internet is go to hell. Okay, just simply go to hell, because when every single wrestling crowd for months in unison yeeting, chanting for Jey, that means something. It's for a wrestler to hold that type of overness for that long. I think it really tells you, okay, this is somebody that the company can get behind because it's organic, When he can yeet for 6 minutes straight, they could play his music for 6 minutes straight, and the moment they turn that music off, the crowd is chanting one more time.
Yeah.
that means something.
So I'm always under the aspect that, or under the thought process that professional wrestling has always been about money, first and foremost. If you're not making money, you're in the wrong business. Jim Cornette has even said on his podcast before, if he could have even afforded to bring in Hulk Hogan to Smoky Mountain Wrestling, he would have in the early 90s. He makes no secret that he's not a fan of Hogan as a person or as a performer, but you can't deny the draw kind of thing. Right. I think it was on Jericho's podcast back forever ago when I used to listen to it before he had on, every nut job in the in the country. He mentioned that if it was 1985 and Arnold Schwarzenegger decided, you know what, I want to be in professional wrestling, every single promotion would have been fighting over him and would have immediately put the belt on him because it's about money. It's about getting eyeballs on the thing. Jey Uso has created this connection with the fans, and when did he debut? Back in 2010?
I think it's been like 2009, 2010, something like that.
Yeah. So, it's not like he's just somebody who came off. It's not like they Goldberged him or anything. It's, hey, how many times did the Usos probably come close to the chopping block when it came time for, releases?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was, their reimagining back when, they did the brand split again between Shane and Stephanie, SmackDown and Raw, that we got to see the beginning steps of this Jey Uso truly coming into the form. I think Jey Uso is the hottest thing in professional wrestling right now. You have to strap the rocket to him. Might not go far. Might go 6 months, but take advantage of that 6 months while you can. Right. I'm still under the belief Jey Uso wins the belt at WrestleMania. He has a short run. He beats Walter again in the rematch, or something where Walter gets sidetracked with someone else. I don't know. We'll figure that out when we get there. And then eventually he's going to drop it to Drew McIntyre, who will then, have his run with the belt. And after Sammy wins the Royal Rumble in 2026, Sammy then goes on to WrestleMania 2026 to beat Drew McIntyre. This is still my belief in what's going on. So we're still going. But having said that, I also think Jey winning this championship is also very important to my other belief that eventually it's going to be him versus Roman one last time for the final tribal chief game, however you want to. And that's how the bloodline story is actually going to end, with Jey beating Roman, getting the Ula Fala and turning it down with the whole family, with the whole Samoan family there and present, and just leaving it on the ground. We need no more tribal chief. Our family is too important to have one head of the table, kind of thing.
I like that.
Thank you, man. I book all this when I'm laying in bed at night, thinking about the communications degree that I'm not using.
Oh, so you're thinking of Roman Reigns or Jey Uso in bed at night too? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's only when I'm done thinking about Trish Stratus. That's 13-year-old me. That's never gone away. But yeah, so I think you have to pull the trigger on Jey Uso right now. I think if you wait any longer, it's going to hurt him. And quite frankly, I think Gunther's the right person to do it with. Gunther could have a great match with the Broom, and he's going to have a great match with Jey Uso. I get there's people that aren't fans of Jey's in-ring style. Doesn't matter. Good matches never sold a ticket. All those tickets were sold when that match already happened, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Yeah, that's my thing about like the internet right now is that they all know everything. They know exactly how everything is supposed to happen. And of course, size matters in wrestling. So, you better have a 20x20 ring or else, God help you, you're going to get completely shit on for it.
You know what? I don't care that they used a smaller ring. I don't know. Was it 16x16? It doesn't actually matter. But I think the actual presentation needed to look better. That's my only gripe with that.
I won't disagree with that.
because it was like you saw like
We're
one of the
talking about
turnbuckles.
AEW Grand Slam.
Yeah. Sorry, this is the last thing I'm going to say about it. But like you saw, like one of the turnbuckles was kind of like bent or whatever. It's like this is a multi-million-dollar company. It was like I get renting a ring. You could have rented a better ring.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the last thing.
JPJ is in the chat. Hey, JPJ.
Hey,
nice.
JPJ.
He says, "Thank you once again, Dan, for filling in with me. For me.
Thank you for once again, JPJ, for not being on. JPJ, I wouldn't be here without you.
Dan has only you to thank, JPJ. So we'll see what happens with Jey Uso. There are also people now speculating he's not even going to get the main event because the feud is not worthy of the main event, which I find to be total bullshit.
I mean, I'm trying to think of what the other main event would be. And I mean, well, one, we don't even know what the WrestleMania card is yet. I mean, there's still a lot of pieces moving right now. I could see this being a co-main event. I can also see it being the main event, because what better way to go off WrestleMania, likely night one, with Jey Uso holding the belt on the ring post and 60,000, 70,000 people all yeeting at one, get the drone shot.
That's the visual that every wrestler aspires for. Honestly.
Yes, and then nothing's going to look better.
That's the yes chant.
Everyone's yeeting.
That's everybody.
Produced by Lee Fittings and Paul Levesque.
I don't even want to go there. So hopefully he gets the night one main event. I mean, look, because then there's also like the women winner of the Royal Rumble. Like where do they fit in? And the classic couple of years now, the wording behind winning the Royal Rumble is that you get the Mania main event. It is for the Mania main event on the title of your choosing, But
even
as we know, it doesn't always end up being that.
Exactly. And as we get to the women's matches, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. And I'm sorry, women's wrestling in 2025, I know there's a lot of people pushing for it. Most people still just don't care.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate because a lot there for the talent and the athleticism in women's wrestling right now, you think more people would.
Yeah, you would, but at the same time, yes, it's still women's wrestling. It's still seen as an attraction. And at the end of the day, I'm sorry, the men have a 100-year head start in front of the women. It's not fair. It's not cool, but it's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Charlotte and Tiffy Stratton is not WrestleMania main event.
Wow.
In 2025. In 2025.
Thank God JPJ's not here right now. He'd go on a 30-minute diatribe.
I wish I had the fake beard right now, and then I could yell at myself as JPJ. Are you kidding me, Dan?
Well, I mean,
it rules. It rules.
I'm poking fun at JPJ there, but
of course.
The thing is that with the Mania, with the Royal Rumble winners, it's unfortunate that it's 9 times. Well, no, it's 10 times out of 10. The women's match ends up not main eventing. Which is not that a women's match hasn't main evented before, of course, because we got Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda that one time.
And then we also had Sasha and Bianca.
Sasha and Bianca, right. They main evented night one a couple years ago.
But having said that, there was nobody hotter in wrestling at the time than Becky Lynch. And
Absolutely.
there was no denying that. Like, she was on top of that mountain. As for Bianca, Sasha, great match. WrestleMania quality, headline main event match. But it just, even then I thought it was like, this feud didn't feel like what should have gotten the main event. And that, again, I'm just speaking as a fan.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah.
There are feuds that you go, oh, well, that's the main event of WrestleMania, obviously, regardless of who the Royal Rumble winner is or not. And
Yeah.
then there's the feuds where it go, oh, well, it's clearly obvious the Mania main event needs to be the Royal Rumble winner here.
I mean, like, let's be honest. Do you really think Vince McMahon would have ever headlined WrestleMania with AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura?
No.
Like, did that ever?
Never.
He's gone crazy. He's gone crazy, but in Vince McMahon terms, he's not gone that Vince McMahon crazy.
No. Yeah. No, never, ever would have happened. And could have once, because Shinsuke did win the Royal Rumble once. And I think him and AJ had a match at WrestleMania that year for the title, but it wasn't the main event. Or maybe was that not the title one?
That was, I think that was Roman Brock 2, where Brock hit Roman with 57 F5s.
Oh, and then threw the title at Vince in the back.
Yes.
After. Yeah, that's right. That's what that was.
And then Vince went on TV the next day, said, I was afraid for my life.
We poke fun here. We poke. So the second interesting topic pertaining to Raw, I found was the Judgment Day stuff, because there's a lot of interesting. So the Judgment Day. So here's what happened. So they're in the Judgment Day clubhouse, as they're calling it, with the TV with 2K24 going on.
It's so stupid.
It's so stupid, but I love it. Carlito's there talking about the 2K game with Raquel, and it pans over to Liv and Dom.
Yeah.
And she's thanking Dominic Mysterio for stepping up, and Dom says that he wishes that Finn could see what he's doing, but every time he mentions bringing in a new member, Finn is like, no, it's not going to happen. So Finn just pops up because he's like, hey, you guys are talking about me?
Yeah.
And, of course,
I'm sitting
Liv is
5 feet away from you right now.
Right. And Liv is like, oh yeah, we're saying about how you're gonna beat Seth Rollins tonight, and you're gonna go on to the Elimination Chamber. And Finn is he does what he typically does in these types of segments, where one, he makes it all about him, and two, he contributes to the tension in the room, because he must make sure that every single person in the Judgment Day is either fighting with him or fighting with each other. It's never, he's never talking to ease the tension. He's never talking to go, let's all come together and be a family. It's always, no, I'm the de facto leader, even though we've all decided that there is no leader of the Judgment Day. And you did something wrong that directly impacted me not winning something last week. How dare you do that? You're going to go and win your match, right? So this is exactly what he does with Raquel. So Raquel pops up, and so he says, oh, so 3 of us, meaning him, Raquel, and Liv, Raquel and him being qualifying, and Liv already in the Elimination Chamber match. After tonight, all 3 of them are going to be in the Elimination Chamber, right? He's looking at Raquel. He's like, if you don't beat Roxanne Perez, you're pretty much a loser that should never be wrestling again, is what he said. And no one, he didn't literally say that. And by the way, I literally forgot that I'm wearing these glasses, and I have to take them off now. Oh, I see blue. All I see is blue.
Say you're going to have to adjust right now.
So Dan, talk to us while my eyes readjust and I can't see anything. Talk to us about how you're feeling about Finn Balor's positioning within the Judgment Day right now and what they're doing with him.
So instead of having if you have a new member, bring them in, but don't call him the Judgment Day anymore. Like, once Finn leaves, at that point, like, it's a new group, because now you don't have any of the original members. Literally, you don't have any of the original 4 members in Judgment Day after that happened.
Yeah, crazy, right?
It's wild to say. I do think Finn essentially going around being like, okay, look at everybody in this room. I'm clearly the leader. like if you're just, even to the casual fan, it's like, okay, look at maybe Carlito is, if you're just going based on size, it'd be like, okay, maybe that guy could beat up that guy. But if you look at Finn compared to anyone else, it's like, okay, that guy's definitely the the head honcho of this group. So I like what they're doing with Finn. I really hope, and I just pulled up YouTube so I can see so I can take a look at the chat here. And JPJ agrees. Finn Solo push is coming in 2025. I don't think you push him straight to the world heavyweight title, especially when I don't see there being any
I wouldn't see that immediately.
But I mean, I could definitely see Finn winning the IC belt in 2025, or even the US. And there's a term that gets thrown around a lot by wrestling fans, calling those the mid-card titles, which I never have liked. Because if you're winning the championship, it shouldn't be considered a middle of the card championship. It is if I am indeed the champion of the United States, I am indeed the champion of the Intercontinental, which sounds stupid, but it's. But you get what I'm saying here. It's like, no, you wear that with pride, and you make sure that it's a target for everyone else to go after. So I'm loving what they're doing with Finn. But by the time a new member comes in, it's dump Judgment Day, dump the title, get rid of the whole Gothy thing. At that point,
so I was going to ask you. I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because I was going to definitively ask you, who do you think the new member is going to be?
I really hope it's not Aleister Black. I really hope. As I just said, drop the goth. Well, I mean, like, if you drop the goth thing, what's the, and then you bring in like the most goth new guy possible.
No. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
I just think, I mean, if you're who you're gonna bring in, I don't know. I really don't know. I just don't want it to be Aleister. And again,
maybe it's
Aleister,
Miro,
not Malachi. Maybe.
Actually,
it's going to be kind of a weird bunch.
I just thought of that now, and I don't hate that, because he could be. I mean, Carlito is there, but he's kind of booked as a goof.
Yeah.
Miro, aka Rusev, of course, for everybody. He would not be Miro in WWE. Rusev, actually, I think would maybe work. If you want to get away from the goth thing that you're addressing, I actually think Aleister Black would be perfect for, because he would be brought in as like the leader. I think he'd be like, okay, this guy is the guy. Also, and I mentioned this with JPJ, I think a week or two ago on Firmly WWE. Malachi has a wrestling school, and I don't remember the name of the wrestling school, but it was referred to. It's like something like the dark arts, something to that effect. And that's what a couple weeks back, I think it was like a week or two before the Rumble. It was when Penta was just debuting. Chad Gable was in the back with Dom.
Yeah.
And Dom said, "Oh, I've got a guy that can help you with the dark arts of lucha." And it made me go, "Oh, wait a minute. That might be a multifaceted thing right there." Where it's like, Dom knows somebody who knows the dark arts, which is Malachi's wrestling school, which then can mean that he is brought in as the new leader of the, like that's how they know each other. So that he would be the one, because he's the one pushing for a new member. So could it be that he's pushing, he's not saying the name, obviously, because that's going to be the big surprise. He knows Malachi Black, who of course now we all know is a free agent and is no longer part of AEW. And Malachi ends up being the one who comes in as the new member of Judgment Day, because he already kind of fits right in with that. You know, the funny thing about it all is that when Judgment Day started, I don't know if you remember this, they were commonly being compared to the House of Black.
Yeah, I remember.
The Gothic style, and then at that point, Adam Copeland, Edge being involved with House of Black on TV while he was the originator of the Judgment Day, and they both had a very similar look. So, I feel like Malachi would be, or Alice. Well, I guess we don't have to call him Malachi Black anymore. It's just not, his name isn't even really Aleister Black or Malachi Black. It's, I think, what is it, Tommy something?
Well,
I think what his
his
real name is.
original wrestling name was Tommy End. I couldn't tell you what these guys' real names are.
Yeah. So anyway, so my point is in that then I feel like there's a lot of, markings on the conspiracy board of, oh, this connects to this and this connects to that and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So my feeling is that Malachi, aka Aleister Black, will be brought in as the new person for Judgment Day. But
I'm afraid you're probably right.
The way that you're describing it, though, if they want to get away from that Gothic style, Rusev, I wouldn't hate Rusev being brought in as a new member, as like that guy that's the actual heavy of the group.
Yeah.
As Carlito is. While he's the big muscle guy, he's not the heavy of the group. He's kind of booked as a big goof.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I am interested to see where it goes. If you're going to bring Aleister Black back, I want him in the ring just kicking dudes' heads off. Like, I remember when Braun Strowman had his first big push in WWE, when he got separated from the Wyatt family and he was just going out there beating up jobbers. And there was a thank you, Tom.
There. That's the name.
I'd keep that name. That's a much better name than Aleister Black.
Yeah.
But when he came in, I remember one time there was I think there was a 6-man tag match on Raw, at Christmas time. And there was a Christmas tree out there too. And it was just a random group of people thrown together. And you're like, why is this happening? And then 30 seconds in the match, Braun Strowman's music hit. And you're like, oh, he's just going to beat up everyone. Yeah. I kind of want something like that where it's a smorgasbord of just random people in the ring. And you're like, I don't get why. And then he just goes in there and he just kicks 6 dudes' heads off. You know what I mean?
Well, JPJ has a wonderful idea in the chat right now. He said the way to go with Black is to keep him in a room for months, just waiting for someone to step up to him. That would feel super fresh.
Oh my God, that was terrible.
Obviously, he's joking there because
that was awful.
That was the worst thing that they did with him in WWE. So they have this segment.
And that was the worst thing they did with him in WWE, and he even had his eye removed, like Rey Mysterio at one point too.
Right, and the makeup. I really enjoyed his carrying that into AEW with him, where the makeup would just become more and more and more dark and bigger and bigger. And then it started to affect other people too. It started to affect Julia Hart as well. And then she started getting it. And I really liked that whole thread just from that moment that happened in WWE. It carried into other people's gimmicks and other promotions too. I really liked that when they were doing that in the beginning. So what do you know? Raquel loses, and I did not expect it. I honestly did not expect that to happen. Because I was like, okay, Roxanne Perez, or as Lillian said, Roseanne Perez.
Roseanne Perez.
New name change. It's Roxanne has is primarily NXT, and I know that Roxanne is very good because she's all the people usually talk about from NXT. I mean, it's not the only person to talk about, but they talk always so highly of her. And so I didn't anticipate what they were going to do in this match because I forgot that over on SmackDown, so we're gonna trickle in some SmackDown here for this part. What made this a little juicier was that they're trying to make it look like Raquel and Liv were the ones who attacked Jade Cargill a month or two ago. And it's so obviously not them.
Yeah.
Like, it's so obvious it's not them. But, they're making it seem like it. It's like, oh, well, we should. So they show the footage. Nick Aldis shows Bianca and Naomi this footage of the attack. Well, they say it's the attack, but it's not the attack. It's like 5 minutes after the attack when everybody's helping Jade into an ambulance, and then they just happen to find Raquel and Liv walking by.
Are you telling me you don't rob a store and then just kind of loiter around for the next 5 to 10 minutes? Like, you just got all the money out of the cash register. You put some, you put some Starburst down your coat and everything. And then you went, hold on, let me see what DVDs they got here. Let me go check the toy aisle and see if they got any more of them Adam Pages hanging up. Spoiler alert, they do.
Clearly from this footage.
Yeah.
It's absolutely.
It's the perfect crime. Commit the crime and then hang around there so there's evidence.
Right.
It's
the camera is just like making sure it's in the perfect spot. Just like your camera was in the perfect spot to find your dog puking a moment ago. It's just the camera is just in this perfect spot to catch Raquel and Liv just walking by, and immediately that means they're the ones that attack Jade.
You would think.
No,
and
ladies and gentlemen.
Nobody called. Not one person called them in the last couple days to be like, hey, there's new footage that doesn't make you look great. Care to explain?
Right, yeah.
And all the explanation you need is, I didn't see the attack. I just saw Jade Cargill on top of a windshield and stopped and watched as the EMTs took her away. It's the same thing when a car wreck happens.
Yeah. And Liv, before this match, Liv and Raquel are approached backstage and really quickly is just like, they just brush it off. They're like, obviously it wasn't us, but, if we want, they're doing that, but if I did do it type of a thing, which I like that they're doing that, but it just is like, you could just come out with it clearly and be like, no, this was not us. We did not do this.
Right.
They haven't actually done that yet. So in this match, by the way, Naomi and Bianca loved the Bring It On cheerleader gear.
That was pretty cool. That was
awesome. That was just came out of nowhere.
I always, just my own little tick in wrestling as a fan, where if you're going to do a run-in, you don't necessarily have to be in your ring gear. Because it's like that means you went to the locker room, you got dressed, you got everything put on. You saw the match card and saw that you did not have a match that night. Like, just go out in your regular clothes.
Yeah.
It's
silly. It's like, and then the music plays too. It's like, well, the only thing that was mentioned was that they said it in the little segment I had just mentioned that Bianca and Naomi were there in the building, and then on Friday after showing this footage, they said they were going to be on Raw.
Very true. Yeah.
That's the only thing that was. Oh, so Naomi and Bianca are showing up today. There was no planned. It appears there's just like gray area where there's a wrestler that's just there to talk or there to approach somebody, but their music still plays, and sometimes, usually, they're in their gear. Like, and this was a twofer. They both Bianca's music played, and they were in their gear, and they weren't scheduled for a match. So Scott says that's Pac every week. Exactly. Like, does this guy own any regular clothes?
You just see him at the airport, like he's got his passport in his trunks.
It's like, well, we definitely don't have to do a strip search.
Yeah.
So that's like that one funny thing about wrestling. That's like, yeah, the music is going to play when they're just surprising somebody. And it's like, well, that's that part that you have to like just suspend your disbelief,
Yeah.
So Bianca and Naomi come out. They attack Liv, distract Raquel, and then Roxanne ends up getting the pin and winning, going on to the Elimination Chamber. So that was surprising to me, but I don't hate it. It's like, okay, because obviously it's servicing this story with the Judgment Day right now. And this is a side story to the Judgment Day. So
here's my issue. And I like Roxanne Perez. I really do. Size does not matter nearly as much on NXT as it does on Raw and SmackDown for one particular reason. It is because most people who watch Raw and SmackDown are not watching NXT. And the ratings just show that. There's not near. So for some people, this is their first maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 times actually seeing Roxanne Perez, and she's in there with a woman twice her size. Have you ever heard Al Snow tell the Tony Atlas, Ole Anderson story?
I have not, no.
Okay, so give you a brief rundown. So Ole brings in Tony Atlas. You know what Tony Atlas looks like, Greek god. Goes out there, takes his shirt off, says, next week, I'm Tony Atlas, I'm in your promotion. Next week, come out, I'm going to bench press 500 pounds. So then they got the weights there. Everyone can touch the weights, feel it. He goes in the ring at intermission. He bench presses 500 pounds, which is incredible for anybody to see. So he goes, thank you for your support. I appreciate that. I want to see you guys come out next week when I have my first match. And he goes out there and he has his first match with a guy about the size of Funaki, and they have a 12-minute match. And they come back, and Ole says, you had a great match, you idiot. Because you're not supposed to – you look at Tony Atlas and you look at Funaki, and he puts them next to each other and says, this tells me one of 3 things. Either this guy, the size of Funaki is the toughest son of a bitch on the planet, points at Tony Atlas, goes, you're the biggest pussy on this planet, or the whole thing is fake and you exposed everything. And Roxanne Perez is an incredible talent. I think she needed to be in there with somebody her size, especially when she's this new, and not be in the ring as long. Give these new fans. What would have
been good, according to that story and where you're going with this? I was thinking, so it would have been good if Raquel had already qualified, and this was Liv versus Roxanne.
Yeah.
And that same thing happened.
And I think that probably would have actually been better, because then she could have pinned Liz. She could have pinned Liv, and then
Liz, Roseanne, whatever.
But like the next 3-4 weeks, every time you see Roxanne Perez on television, she's got a pinfall victory over a former women's champion.
And she is a women's champion herself in NXT.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
well, no, not anymore.
Oh, the former, right?
Former, yes.
But then, and I actually would have liked to see her bodyguard be in the match, but not her. Like just to get that, like to add that little extra tension that's already very prevalent in the Judgment Day. I think I actually would have liked that, because there was times like in the Bloodline where it would be like, it would be interesting if the Usos kept the tag titles, but Roman lost. And to see the dynamic there, where now the head of the table, or in this case with Liv, she's like the de facto leader, the women's leader, taking over the Rhea role of Judgment Day. And she's got this bad guy, she's the Shawn Michaels, and she's got the Diesel here. And it turns out that the bodyguard is, or the not the head of the table, is the one who holds the gold, or who gets that extra leap over the leader. And then the leader still has to have that leader dynamic with the people who have won something above him. I like, but they never, for some reason, they just never seem to want to go with that for some reason.
Yeah.
But I would love to see that dynamic. I wanted it so badly in the Bloodline, the original Bloodline. But it kind of looks like maybe we're getting that with the new Bloodline, which is something that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. So I'm happy about that. But I do agree with you. Sometimes the size thing, I kind of just like go, okay, it happened. It's servicing a story. It's like Roxanne maybe wouldn't have beaten Raquel, who is double her size, but because of Bianca and Naomi and Raquel taking her attention off of the match, because the person she's supposed to be protecting is getting attacked. Then I go, okay, well, you know what? I get it. All right. Because, in a classic David and Goliath type of a story, sometimes David can defeat Goliath. And it just takes this one little thing. They go, okay, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah. I agree. I love. Don't get me wrong. I love watching David beat Goliath. I love watching that. Okay, but just like if you know anything about comic books, I love in comic book movies. I love Logan, and I love the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel. It's the old man, one last run kind of thing. Same thing I'm loving with Cena. It's the same thing I'm loving with Jeff Jarrett right now too. It's this old man's got one more thing left, even though I wish they would have done it with Dustin Runnels whenever his time was up. Having said that, back to my point here. I love David versus Goliath, but you need to build up David a little bit more to the everyday fan base. My only critique,
I agree with that.
Maybe I'm wrong. And I always take I always take that approach of this is just my opinion. I might be wrong. I'm not, but I might be.
Oh, don't we all have that little voice inside our heads?
I'm friends with a bunch of marks, and that's the only time I use that phrase marks is to describe this group of friends. Because I'm a corny guy. I love my cornet. Don't agree with everything he says, but I freaking love him. And it's so easy to get.
I don't love him at all, but I respect you, and you're right to love him.
Well, I love him for
and not that you're like one of the shirt wearing, agreeing with every single thing that he says type of a love.
Next time I'm on, I'm wearing my corny shirt.
Do you actually have one?
I don't anymore.
Okay.
Although I am headed to Louisville, Kentucky at the end of next month, and I've already plotted out all of my trips to the post offices to see if I can run into him, because he's always at the post office on Saturday mornings, as he explains.
That's funny.
I'm not going to do
anything. Hopefully, you get to meet him.
I actually got to meet him once at a Comic-Con. It was really cool. And then I went to one of his panels, which was even cooler. And then I went back to his booth afterwards, and I asked him a couple of questions, and it was good interaction. He was awesome. I asked him what it would take for him to forgive Vince Russo. And he just laughed in my face, and his wife came over and said that Vince Russo essentially needs to go on television and say what a dumb piece of shit he is. And he apologizes for everything he's ever done to wrestling, which is never going to happen. But
No.
I lost my train of thought here. Anyway, I'm not. So I view this as somebody who listens to Corny, tends to agree with him more often than not. I think you just can't book Roxanne Perez as the prodigy to people who've never seen her before,
Right.
or who have rarely seen her. You got to build that up. Call her the prodigy. Call her, as JPJ said on here, call her 1 of 1. That's great. Have Michael Cole really talk her up. Have Pat McAfee really talk her up. And then after a couple months, when I'd say this, after a couple months, have her show up on SmackDown and get in Chelsea Green's face. I think that's the best way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you.
For Survivor Series. Or for SummerSlam.
So Raquel loses.
Yep.
And then the main event of the night was Finn and Seth. Now, okay. That I wasn't expecting from you.
No, I'm messing around.
So Finn gets his chance to punch his ticket for Elimination Chamber in the main event.
And he forgot to kick out at 2.
So like, I don't. Yeah, well, I guess that's probably what ended up happening. But it just, that moment looked so awkward because
they've had quite a few of those 2 recently. WWE has.
Yeah, they have. Well, so with the match, so what happens is they that spot happens, and then it's like, oh, okay. So my assumption, because the referee didn't complete that 3 count, my assumption was, oh, okay, so something's happening here because that wasn't supposed to be the finish. So I originally wanted Finn to actually win. And so I was like, all right, so there's 2 things that can happen here. One, either Dom and Carlito try to interfere to no avail, and it ends up costing Finn. Or Roman comes out to cost Seth for what happened at the Royal Rumble. When that botched 3 count happened, and it was Seth that had the pin, I was like, oh shit, he's not going to win this match because they weren't going to. They're not counting the 3 there. He's not supposed to win this match. So immediately, like, oh shit, Roman's going to come out, which would be like a huge shock to the crowd. But then, no. Like, okay.
Can I say what? And maybe this is just another wrestling fan pet peeve of mine, that this time Finn did it, and I am not one to criticize Finn Balor's body of work at all. Okay, the guy is damn near perfect in the ring, about as perfect as you can be. Have we ever heard stories about Finn Balor hurting anybody?
Never.
None that I can think of, at least at the top of my head. If you're going to hit the coup de grace and there's going to be a kick out at 2, sell that knee a little bit longer and like have to scoot yourself back over to Seth. Give Seth a couple more seconds. This way you're not covering him as fast and making him kick out. 1, 2, kick out. Help yourself out a little bit. You know, it's like, oh man, if only Finn would have got there 2 seconds earlier, he probably would have won. Just my own, again, my own thing. And then with that whole kick out at 2, I understand why the fans were upset. Seth Rollins used a pedigree, which he used to use as a finisher to finish people, beat them, and then count to 3. And it was clear that it was 3. And it just made it look
very clear.
And I'm not going to say it ruined the match or ruined the whole show, but you know, it kind of gave us a little bit sour, like, why did that have to happen? And I also keep thinking out
especially if Seth was already just gonna win, just end the match right there. And he does like, his kick out, because he did do a kick out after the ref just was like, oh no, actually I can't count this 3. He could have just counted 3, and then the kick out would have looked even more natural because it would have been the 3.1 kick out that was, I think, like Hogan or somebody really like made famous of like,
Bobby Fish didn't see him.
He just misses 2.99. Like it would have looked, I think, way more natural and organic than what they ended up doing.
I think it was Jim Ross's story about being a referee with Harley Race. And this is when Jim was, fresh in the business. Harley called Jim into, the office. I forgot who Harley was wrestling, and said, okay, go on the floor and show me how you're going to count the 3. And he does it. Okay, do it again. Does it again. If you do it like that every single time, we're not going to have a problem. And if my shoulders are down for 3, you need to hit 3. That's my fault. And then Jim Ross left that room having no clue what the finish was. And I think that's something that, because here's the thing. What if the ref hit 3? Is it the referee's fault? No. Nobody would. And especially with that finish right there, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, Seth used the pedigree before. The people are chanting 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it would have made sense. And I just think it's people trying to be cute when they don't need to be cute. I think if you're going to kick out,
because they needed to for some reason they needed to do 2 more moves and then the finish instead of just ending it right there.
But if you're going to do a kick out like that, at least make it a much more high profile match where there's more drama because the title's on the line. You're in the main event of a major pay-per-view, maybe a WrestleMania, maybe just a Money in the Bank. Who knows? But at least there's something on the line. It's not a qualifying match, so you can then wrestle in another match, so you can then wrestle in another match.
Mm-hmm.
This all matters. And maybe fans aren't thinking about it in the way how I'm thinking about it, but it's resonating the same. It's they're still again, maybe I'm trying to be too smart. Maybe I'm trying to look into it a little bit more. Maybe I'm fantasy booking a little bit too much.
We are all guilty of that, Dan.
Exactly. But you get what I'm saying here. To the people who watch Raw on Monday night because that's what they watch on Monday night, they're not thinking 10 steps ahead, but they are still watching it with the same urgency that's still going on.
Right. So I don't know. That made me go, oh shit, something major is going to happen now, because that was, like I said, it made me think, okay, Seth's not supposed to win this match. So I think Roman might come out and cost him the match because of what happened at the Royal Rumble. And that's going to start the build to WrestleMania, where Punk is going to try and figure out how to get himself inserted with Paul Heyman's, the favor that he owes him. But that didn't end up happening. Finn just lost clean, and
I think Roman comes back at Elimination Chamber and enters the chamber when someone else is eliminated. So when Logan Paul gets eliminated, Roman's going to enter as they open the gate to get Logan Paul out, and then he's going to attack Seth there.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Although
most likely possibility.
I threw out Logan. Chances are Logan's going to be the one who pins Seth after that happens.
I can't even talk about him. And the good thing is that I'm in control of the show today, so I don't have to talk about him.
But that's what makes the most sense. Logan is the one who would take it. He would be the one to take advantage of that. And then, of course,
some people are saying it might be John Cena and Logan at WrestleMania this year. Which,
no, thank you.
Let me be your dog for a second. No, thank you.
I still
No, thank you.
think Cena needs to show up on TNA at some point this year. Just
Whoa, that would be incredible. That would be incredible.
Unannounced. And don't even have him wrestle Joe Hendry. Have him tag with Joe Hendry. I think that would be the bigger
cool.
thing.
That would be really cool.
Completely unannounced.
So the last thing, well, there's a couple other things to like focus on, but
Yeah.
What I want to mention here quickly, because it's already a hour and 10. What I do want to mention is so Sammy and KO, they're going to be wrestling again for the millionth time at Elimination Chamber next Saturday. And so what I'm liking about this version of it, though, because a lot of people are like, oh, this again. Which I kind of like alluded to when I said, oh, the millionth time that they're wrestling. What I'm liking about this version of it, though, is Sammy is selling that this is different from before.
Yeah.
That, like, every time Kevin Owens has turned on him, it's really been for, oh, well, I want this title shot instead of you. I want this main event instead of you. But this time it was to end his career. And it's never, in Sammy's eyes at least, it's never truly been to end his career.
Yeah.
It's just been to get those opportunities. And that part of it made me go, oh, you know what? Okay, this is, while they've gone to this well 1,000 times, this part of it I feel is different because now this version of Kevin Owens isn't the regular old, hey, I just turned on my friend and I'm attacking him and I'm taking his spot. Now it's like, no, this version of Kevin Owens is vicious and wants to end his best friend's career, maybe even kill him. So that I'm like, okay, you know what? I can get behind this. And then the other part too, I have a love-hate relationship with Adam Pearce. I make no qualms about that. Usually
I love him. I love him.
Usually I'm like, you are not a great GM and you kind of are you're a doormat and you don't really control the locker room. And the thing that I would always get on here and talk about the most was, oh, he's the one that's always like screaming at people when they're brawling. It's like, enough, stop this. But then at the same time, he's like, oh, well, I love the chaos.
Yeah.
I love the chaos, but and so I'm just like, whatever, Adam Pearce. However, just like with this new version of KO, I genuinely liked this Adam Pearce in his role in this promo because, like his standard thing is like, oh, it's official. I've got to say everything. It's official. That's his catchphrase. Probably had a T-shirt with it too. And
why not? They made a T-shirt that said $9.99 for the WWE Network.
Yeah, exactly.
And I bought it. I didn't buy it, but
oh, okay, good. Even if you did, I mean, hey, whatever. But him in this promo now, really talking to Sammy, caring for him, being like, listen, if he attacks you out on a concourse, I can't do anything about it. If he pile drives you 1,000 times, I can't do anything about it because we cannot sanction this match. The doctors will not clear you. And frankly, I, Adam Pearce, can't do it. So if you want it, the only way it can happen is if it's an unsanctioned match. And I was like, you know what? This was the perfect way to do this. I'm liking the direction now. Now, I don't know what happens. Because it's an unsanctioned match, technically, that's not a real match in wrestling, guys. Even though it's a match that's happening. So the finish doesn't matter. The winner doesn't matter. It's just unsanctioned. Anything goes. someone can kill someone, and it's
Yeah.
only on the person. It's the liability of that person, not of the company.
You've all signed your
So
waivers. Yeah.
yeah, so it would have been interesting if it was at WrestleMania, but I understand obviously the um the Canada factor here. They always want to do KO and Sammy in Canada when they can.
Yeah.
So they're doing it at Elimination Chamber instead. What are your feelings on this?
So first thing I felt like they had to have an unsanctioned match. And I loved it. And part of me in the back of my head, I was like, I wonder if they're going to do the men's elimination chamber to end the show. Like cut away to, Jackie Redmond, interviewing somebody, and then come back. The chamber's been lifted, and kind of do what they did in AEW, where Justin Roberts went on. And it was like, as soon as the lights go out, the event has technically ended. So the lights go out, they come back on. There's Lillian Garcia in the middle of the ring. The following match has been unsanctioned. It will be determined by one fall, and start there. So it's technically not part of Elimination Chamber, but it's clearly part of Elimination Chamber because, it's not like they signed 2 leases. You know what I mean? Or do you just do it in the middle of the show where it's like, okay, we're going to pause our show so all this nonsense can go on. And I'm using the chorus nonsense, and we're not liable for any of it.
Right.
So we're gonna pause our show, let this fight happen, and then we're gonna restart our show where fights are happening. It it sounds weird. That's why I think putting it at the end is the better option. So I'm watching it. I'm fantasy booking. I see KO and Randy Orton at WrestleMania, and I see Sami Zayn and Karrion Kross at WrestleMania. And if Sami Zayn can't get Karrion Kross over at WrestleMania, then I think it's over for Karrion Kross at that point. They've done everything they could to get him over.
Just give him the papers, say goodbye. It's like, what are we even doing here?
I'm not cheering against anybody. I'm not, I don't like to see people lose their jobs, their livelihoods, whatever, put them in a rough spot. I'm a Karrion Kross fan, but
there's plenty of places he can go and make money.
Has anyone struck out more than that guy? To the main audience.
I don't disagree with you there.
So who wins at that point? Do you have Randy costing KO the fight versus Sammy, or do you have Karrion getting his nose involved in places it doesn't belong?
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in because obviously, like you said, Karrion needs something to finally sink his teeth into and be a legitimate person in this division. That he's just been lackluster for most of his run, and it's unfortunate because I don't feel like it's not because of him, it's because the stories that he's been thrown into are just lackluster.
Yeah.
And he's like always the side person. He's always the person in the background. While he has been serving his role, I think good, particularly in the last month or two, really since the New Day turned heel, because he's like the reason why that happened, and he's the reason why Miz turned on Truth. And, I like that that's what they're doing with him, but that can't be his only role.
So this is where I go into this now. I have, if I'm leaning one way or the other, and it looks like Scott in the chat kind of agrees with me here. I think Randy Orton shows up to get back at KO because I feel like this is going to be Sami Zayn's last win for a while. Because he's going to feud with Karrion.
That's
I
possible.
have Karrion Kross winning at WrestleMania. Because this is all going to build towards me believing Sammy's going to, get the victory at Royal Rumble next year in Saudi Arabia. that then leads him to finally beating Drew McIntyre. I think Drew McIntyre is going to beat Sammy a couple more times this year. You know, bring his record to 15-0 versus Sammy.
Yeah.
And, you know, Karrion Kross kind of being that person that breaks Sammy and breaks him good. And then Sammy's got to dig deep to find that beast in him again, that scrappy fighter. That's the one thing.
Right.
As we talk about, you know, size in wrestling, Sammy's one of those guys I look at and I go, the size matter, yes, but he also looks like a scrappy dude. Like if you were in a fight,
right? Yeah,
and you didn't know who it was, like your boys are at one end of the bar, his boys are at the other bar. You're looking across and you see him. You're like, I'm willing to bet that guy's going to throw a thumb in my eye. I'm willing to bet that guy's going to pull some hair or bite somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. Sammy always gets like, I think the like Mick Foley type of comparisons. And I feel like that's a perfect comparison for him because
I do too. That's great. Yes.
Yeah. He's like the perfect scrappy, like you said, like that scrappy kind of guy that is going to be with you in that fight and may take on the bigger guy, even bigger than him. But there's a little tactic that he can do to get the upper hand. And that's always, I think, what I've admired about Sammy the most because, well, he's got a killer theme song. Just absolutely love that thing.
It's a banger.
In a land of really shitty Def Rebel themes, his stands out.
Well, his was a CFO.
Right. Yeah. Thankfully, he's from before this awful time.
And also, can I give a hot take right now? CFO themes have mostly sucked too. There's been a few really good ones. They did.
Yeah, they did.
But yeah, and also to be fair, Jim Johnson had some stinkers, but most of his were pretty good.
Yeah. So I'm glad to see this with Sammy and KO, this new little like wrinkle to their long storied career. And we'll see what happens at the Elimination Chamber. I feel like KO is going to end up winning, but then there's, like you mentioned, there's that Randy Orton factor too. It's like, where's Randy been? Where's Randy? So we'll see what happens there. Maybe they'll give us some more insight next week. Now I really want to get your opinion on something very important that happened last night.
Okay.
And that is the New Day.
Love it. Love it. Hashtag Kofi was right. Hashtag Woods was right. Hashtag Big E deserved it. Hashtag who are the other two guys in the LWO?
So they were talking some truth. I will not
again
lie.
That's why I love them. That everything they've said has been truthful. Yeah.
And it's like technically Kofi's been there longer than Rey Mysterio, like consecutively, and so technically he should be the locker room leader, not Rey Mysterio. So I found that part funny. It's like, well, actually, you know what? You're right. You should be the locker room leader. So I liked this, like this new, I don't know if has Dragon Lee ever has he ever talked this much before? I feel like he hasn't.
I don't think so.
I can't remember at least.
I don't think so. So here's the thing. I feel like kind of like what I said about so many goth people. Rhea Ripley is queen of the goth. She's clearly right there. So everyone who else is trying like the goth gimmick, you just look silly compared to her because she's fantastic. And you all feel like kind of a cheap knockoff. With Ray is always going to be Ray. with Penta, and soon we're going to see with Rey Fenix, who are going to get the big push that they didn't get in AEW, or so to believe. I feel like perhaps Dragon Lee, as talented and as special as he is going to get lost in the shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he's already been lost in the shuffle.
There was that other part of truth too. That's like, well, all the young up and coming lucha guys, they do they tend to like either be paired with Ray, or Ray ends up coming out above them for something. That's what Kofi was saying. So it's like, well, that was the common theme that a lot of people were thinking when Penta was debuting. It was like, oh, LWO.
Yeah,
because,
and I used to get bothered by this, especially under Vince McMahon, where it was like the New Day's feuding with the Hurt Business, and it was like, are you just feuding all the black people with each other? Like, is that what? And because it's like it was a lot of like. They would feud, and then like just it would keep going. And then you would also see that with a lot of the Hispanic stars, where it's like, okay, this person's going to feud with this person, and then this group's going to feud with this group. And it's like you're putting all these people of the same ethnicity with each other, and it's kind of hard to not notice. And are you doing it because it's what's for the best for all of them? Or are you going, hey, we need something for all these guys to do, and they all happen to be Hispanic. Let's put them together.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that's been
feeling like it's the latter, usually, unfortunately.
Especially, and I always forget the other two guys' names. And I don't ever care to remember.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Yes, that's what I always remember as Joaquin Phoenix. Because I know that's not
Del
right.
Toro. Cruz Del Toro? Maybe? Something Del Toro, I think. Pretty sure. He used to have a beard. Looked really good with it. And then he like shaved it completely and is totally clean shaven. I was like, okay. But I think his name is Cruz Del Toro. Pretty sure.
Okay.
Or something Del Toro. But yeah, so I'm excited to see more of this from New Day and LWO. Dragon Lee is a very good talker. He comes across well. It is Cruz. Thank you, Scott. It is Cruz Del Toro. I was right.
Yeah, thank you.
And my other podcast is in the chat right now. Hello, Roundtable. Nice to see you. Happy Tuesday. So we'll see what happens there with that. Now, two quick little things involving both IC titles on this show. Looks like we're getting AJ and Braun. I don't hate that. However, Braun speared Dom post-match. So maybe Dom gets involved in that? Or was that just a plot device? I don't know.
I think it's just a plot device, and I hope he doesn't, because I think the story here is powerhouse young kid versus the grizzly veteran, the quite possibly the best in the world grizzly veteran. The way how Braun threw that shirt and AJ caught it, you couldn't rehearse that.
Was cool. That was cool.
And I think that's the route you need to go. I think AJ beats Braun at WrestleMania for the belt, and then the two of them trade it back and forth for a little bit. It's one of those,
Braun Breaker right now. Like, he's one of the people who got a call up and excelled in his role.
Yeah,
like I'm really happy with him. I didn't care about him at all in NXT, and then he very quickly they did that thing with Adam Pearce and him. It's like, oh, I have to go and make my shot instead of you giving me that shot, And
Yeah.
like the same thing that he did with the guy who's been out for a while that was in the Survivor Series match, and I'm forgetting his name. Why? I hate that I'm forgetting his name, and I apologize for that.
Who are we talking about?
Bronson Reed.
Oh, Bronson Reed, yes.
It was like the same thing that happened with Braun here, where it's like they were doing that same similar storyline where they had to go and make their shot and against Adam Pearce because Adam Pearce wasn't doing anything with them. So I'm really happy that they did that with Braun Breaker because he's excelled as in this role that he's in, and I think is a legitimate intercontinental champion for sure. So AJ and him, I think, makes perfect sense for WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Now, regarding the other IC title on the show, it's nice that it's even being acknowledged.
Yeah.
Finally. Because
right.
It's been about a month and a week or so since it was
she won it. Yeah.
And there's not been a single title defense yet, nor was there a contender, or was it even really featured on the show?
Yeah.
So it's nice that we've finally got Dakota Kai, who looked great in this match.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's nice. We're gonna get Dakota and Lyra Valkyria for the IC title, and I don't remember. Did they say it was on Elimination Chamber? I don't remember if they said it was Elimination.
I don't remember if they said it or not.
But whenever that happens, good. It's about time.
Yeah,
that's all I've got to say.
I'll be happy to see round 2 of that.
So, the last thing that I want to touch on for the day, is from SmackDown, and it's I referenced it earlier. It's the big story right now involving the Bloodline 2.0.
Yeah.
So Solo lost to Roman on the first day, Raw on Netflix debut, and then just disappeared for a month. And in that time, Jacob Fatu really stepped up to the plate, which is I found was very mirroring what had happened when Roman lost at WrestleMania last year. Solo stepped up to the plate because Roman was out and became this de facto leader of this new bloodline, according to what we thought at the time was Roman saying, "Oh yeah, you can do this." Turns out, no, he just did it on his own. So SmackDown started with Cody, devolved a little bit with Drew. Drew McIntyre comes out. So Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga come out, and Solo is shown entering the arena. So Solo, by the way, is wearing this really nice white suit. Like, wow, that looks good on you. So Jacob and Tom and Jacob and Cody are like going over like who's going to go and see Solo first. But Cody allows Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga to go. So they get him in the locker room. And I was surprised to see Solo do something that was very different in his leadership role of this bloodline versus what Roman would have done to Jimmy or Jey, or what he did do with Jimmy and Jey. Which is like, so obviously the main event of the show is this triple threat to see who's going to get the final spot for SmackDown in the Elimination Chamber between Braun Strowman, Jacob Fatu, and Damian Priest.
Yeah.
When they get to the locker room, now I'm expecting, as he really mirrored his leadership with Roman's, I'm expecting him to be like, well, all right, actually, this should be my shot because I can then pick Cody to go after him.
Right.
Since, the other title is already involved with Jey and Gunther. But instead, he says he let himself down by losing to Roman, and he let the whole family down. And it's been hard to deal with, so he had to take some time off. But he wants to take back his leadership role. And he's saying, instead of it being that he goes after it instead, he's actually fine and encourages Jacob Fatu to take the title back for the family, which is something that Roman Reigns never did. Never.
And
always about Roman.
Well, Roman started the bloodline with him on top already.
Right.
Solo's coming back into this bloodline, trying to be on top, but trying not to ruffle too many feathers. I think the reason Solo did that is because it's going to lead to Solo trying to manipulate Jacob Fatu. And eventually what's going to happen is Jacob's going to get that shot, and Solo's going to manipulate that shot out of Jacob for himself. And then eventually Jacob's going to be fed up with it, and we're going to see a Solo-Jacob feud.
That's possible. So I had thought about that when I was watching the show. I'm like, oh, okay. So something, but I was like, something's not adding up here. I feel like something's going to happen. Well, of course, what ends up happening? Main event, Solo comes out, and then Cody comes out. Solo accidentally spikes Tama Tonga instead of Cody, which upsets Jacob, which causes him to lose distraction, and then Damian Priest takes advantage and ends up winning the match.
Right.
So it's like they're kind of jump-starting what you just said a little bit, instead of it being, oh, okay, there'll be like some Judgment Day-esque type tension between the two teams. No, it seems like they're jumping straight into, oh, Jacob's going to have a problem with him now. Because
I think, which, by the way, how fickle are these fans to turn on Damian Priest the way that they have?
Well, Daniel Bryan did say it best.
Fickle.
I should get that moment just to put in StreamYard so I can hit it every single time I need to.
I love it. Fickle. Yeah, I mean, I don't see the bloodline story ending in the next
6 months.
6 months.
Maybe almost a year. Yeah.
I think, in all honesty, I think if it doesn't end this year at SummerSlam, it needs to end next year at SummerSlam, because Roman beat Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman at SummerSlam the week after SummerSlam 2020. When they pandemic, it was like, oh, we're just going to have a pay-per-view. Who cares? It's on Peacock. And he beat those two guys. That's officially, because he came back at the end of SummerSlam that year. Like after the match happened, he went in and beat up both the guys.
I remember Payback or whatever pay-per-view it was. Yeah.
So I think that's how the bloodline needs to end. It's like, no, it ended 6 years after the date it started. With, again, Roman versus Jey.
My God, this has been going on for a long ass time.
It is, and that's
storyline.
And then let him wrestle Rock next year at WrestleMania. Roman beats Rock next year at WrestleMania, and that's he's back to power hungry Roman, officially a heel. No ifs, ands, or buts, no mipped around, no people questioning. Well, he's back and he's doing. It's like, no, he's back to being head of the table, tribal chief, getting all of his bloodline behind him. Tama, Tonga, Jacob, Solo, everyone is forced. Lance Anoy, bring him in. Bring back Rikishi.
Zilla Fatu.
Zilla, yeah. I mean, at that point, I would imagine Zilla's probably be more ready for television. I would imagine.
By a year from now, I would say,
yeah. Have them all, and then when Jey beats Roman and the whole family is around to witness it. Meanwhile, Nia Jax is like, hey, how come I didn't get the invitation? uh, as she's in the back. I Solo's got something in his back pocket right now. Don't know what it is yet. Don't know how he's going to do it, but he's got it.
Yeah. I'm very interested in it. I never thought about it the way that you just put it, where it ends when it began by the person that it began with. And that was like the next year's SummerSlam is the final like bloodline related thing, and then they finally go their separate ways.
And I only say that because I don't think The Rock wrestles at WrestleMania this year.
No, he's definitely. It's very clearly. It seems he is definitely not wrestling this year.
Yeah, if he was, I'd say bump it up to this year. But since he's not, figure out something else to do.
Yeah. Dan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been great. Now I've gotten to talk to you on Firmly AEW. Now I've gotten to talk to you on Firmly WWE. Plug your stuff. Tell us where we can find you. What's going on?
YouTube is at Dan Brown Comedy. On Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, it is at X Dan Brown. X for being straight edge. You can, if you're going to be in the Upper Peninsula, I'm going to be there on Friday at Pasquale's in Dagani. If you're in Wisconsin, I'll be at the Odyssey Fun Center on Saturday. Next weekend, I'm in Wesley Chapel at Side Splitters. And at the end of March, I will be at the Caravan Comedy Club in Louisville, Kentucky.
Sweet. Go follow Dan and go to his comedy shows if you can. He's very funny. I've enjoyed it. I've talked to you now a little bit privately. I've talked to you on here a couple times, and I'm very, very much a fan. So thank you very much for filling for JPJ.
Happy to do it. JPJ, get well soon.
He's actually on vacation.
He's on vacation. He's on vacation. Nobody actually.
Yeah. He's not sick. He's
just messing around. I'm just messing around.
I, of course, am yours truly, Drew Nicholas, and you can follow me at the Drew Nicholas on Twitter and Blue Sky, and doing the show once again, most likely on Thursdays. I don't know who with yet. It might even be a solo show. I might solo Sokoa it. Who knows?
There you go.
Just check out at Firmly LW our social media for Firmly Love Wrestling, and I will keep everybody up to date there. So, for Dan, for me, until next time, everybody, peace out.